Yeah.
And my story is, I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I need to be very clear about this. It's probably one of the best things that happened to me. But at 25, and you're told that, oh, there's 17% chance of this thing we found in your lung, we have to operate, you might not wake up. You're not a 25-year-old anymore. You're an old man who's facing potentially not being alive after the surgery.
All right. So, on our In the Arena podcast today, we have a very special friend of mine, a colleague, and also one of my coaches, Dr. Stefan Gospodinov, on the show today. I just wanted to ask you, just for our audience, tell us a little bit about your background and your journey so far, and how you've got to where you are today in terms of chiropractic specifically, and also what you're now doing for the profession at large.
Got you. Okay. Thank you, Bud. Really, really nice to be here. We've just walked around your amazing clinic. So I'm still a little bit stunned of the size of the place and how incredible it is. And I get very excited about business and opportunities and building stuff. So this is part of my personality. I'm an excited puppy, Labrador, and I always have been. From a very young age. I was very much into sports, lots of injuries, lots of trauma. Always been super excited about the human body and health. For those of you who don't know my personal story, I almost lost my life in mid-20s. And I think I need to frame the rest of the conversation from there because people need context to understand people, which is why I love what you do in the podcast, because 30-second reel on Instagram doesn't give you the story.
Yeah.
And my story is, I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I need to be very clear about this. It's probably one of the best things that happened to me. But at 25, and you're told that, oh, there's 17% chance of this thing we found in your lung, we have to operate, you might not wake up. You're not a 25-year-old anymore. You're an old man who's facing potentially not being alive after the surgery, and that everything is emotionally connected to that memory, which means every decision I make now is based on that. So that's the framework. I almost lost my life. I was very lucky that I had a good medical team, regained my health. I was a chiropractor thinking, nice car, nice girlfriend, nice house. None of that mattered at the time.
So tell me a little bit more about that. Like when you've had that, diagnosis, or you found that out, what were you thinking? After, how did that shift your, values in a way?
Yeah.
And I guess your urgency.
My wife tells me off about this still, but what happens is interesting. The first thing that happens is logic goes out of the way. So you get a call. I had a call from the hospital. I'm eating pizza with one of my best friends in a restaurant like this. He's about to go to flight school in New Zealand. I'm saying goodbye to him and my phone rings. If you're in the NHS in the UK and you get a call from the consultant in the NHS,
there's something
you know it's not a good sign. And this gentleman rings me and says, look, we found something on a scan from last night's appointment. You need to come in today. Logic is, nope. The shift that I have coming up tomorrow at the time I was treating patients, no. Holiday I have coming up, 0. The only thing you think is, am I going to be okay? The whole animalistic limbic system kicks in. It's very weird. I don't know if you ever had this, Brian. And then logic kicks in.
Yeah.
Oh my God. How am I going to leave money to my wife to be, my parents, when am I going to say bye to them? Really bizarre. But it almost shapes, you mentioned the word urgency. It almost acts as when you get in the car in the morning and it's been quite steamy and cold and you can't see anything.
Yep.
It almost acts like a sponge going,
Yeah.
I can see clearly again. So impactful for me. Probably for the rest of my life that I had that experience at a young age, because now I know what's important. It's time, it's your health, it's impact. However you want to get there. And unfortunately, sometimes it's too late for people to have that reflection. And I was lucky enough in a way to have that for a health challenge. Yeah,
quite an early stage.
And you probably see this in my personal life. You probably see this in my business life. I have to go 10x.
Yep.
Sorry, Grant Cardone.
Cool. And so for you then, my second question is what does daring greatly mean to you personally?
Daring greatly.
What does it mean for you? You talked about urgency, you talked about this change and what was important to you, but what does daring greatly mean? To be in the arena, not to be on the sideline? What does that mean?
So I'm not sure if what I'm going to say, if it's something that I learned through having coaches and mentors in life. If it was a learned behavior, I'm not sure, or if it was a DNA thing.
Mm.
But it means that everything is on me.
What do you mean by that?
You know how great leaders always say, I'm not a great leader, but internally, I've always had this like butterfly feeling in my tummy that if something happens, I have to be the one who helps people. If things are going tits up, excuse the French, I have to be the one that I'm there for people. I'm the one that has the internal drive to help or to make it happen. Is setting an example, is being there, is showing up, is having grit that I will sacrifice something for me in order for us to win. But if we lose, I lose.
Mm. Nice. I just wanted to go back to your story a minute because I think for those of you who don't know you, and also your background, way before you even had this health challenge, I just want people to understand, like, and Stefan is very humble about this, but I think it's really important for people to know because I think when you understand the background of someone, you can understand why they do what they do, and so I think for those that don't know, tell us about like how you came to the UK and like what was that process for you because your nationality you're Bulgarian and so I think tell the audience around like what was that process like how did you come to be how did you then go from school to then deciding you were going to become a chiropractor why you did that I think that's really important because we missed that.
Yeah. And actually, for me, it's sometimes, it's not embarrassing to talk about it, but I often get people like, how did you do that? And I'm like, I just did because I don't feel sorry for myself.
So tell us about that.
So my background is actually, we're from a small country in Eastern Europe, yeah, Bulgaria, and I was born in a communist country. So some of your listeners wouldn't have even like the enough experience to know what that feels like, what that looks like. But it looks like this. I'm 1 year old and my mum is having to line up in the shop for 6 hours with one coupon that we get 3 bananas for that week. That was communism. It was everyone was equal, but no one had anything. My dad buys his first ever car. He puts the down payment. 4 years later, he gets it because it was like you're a number. It's crazy. So you have to think about that, the mentality of people, the way I was brought up.
Mm.
My parents never allowed me to know that we didn't have much until I became older and all these stories started to make sense.
Yeah.
I was always like, anything is possible. If you meet my mom, she's like, you're the best and you can go and save the world. And I've always flied in the clouds. So I know that maybe there's a little bit of, maybe she overdid it, but it gives you the sense of empowerment. Like,
Yeah.
everything's possible. Yeah. And
So
then
you're in Bulgaria, then
I'm 15 and we have to move a country. Literally, mum's a nurse, dad is a police officer, can barely.
so they came over here.
They came over here. They left my brother, he's 10 years younger than me, and myself, grandparents to look after us. Imagine now you have kids, I have kids, the level of responsibility.
Yeah, it's huge.
But here's another lesson that maybe the listeners can relate to. If you turn things into from a problem to a sense of adventure, it creates slightly different brain chemical in your mind. It creates a slightly different script that, yeah, I can feel sorry that I'm not going to see mom and dad. It was horrendous. Or I can say, hang on a minute. I can maybe get my grandparents to buy me a motorbike. And I'm only 14. You know?
Yeah.
And I attack business in that respect as well.
I guess going from like a fear-based mindset of like, oh God, like I now have the support system of this thing to like, how can I make this fun and adventurous?
Right.
Yeah.
How can we experience this? You choose how to experience it.
Mm.
Tony Robbins talks about this. I talk about this to my clients when business is not going well and this and that. Yeah, let's just cry about it for the next 6 days. Or why don't we just go and speak to 10 businesses today and say, hey, guess what? I'm the best chiropractor in town. Oh, what's this leaflet doing in my pocket? Come and see us. Create an environment in your brain that it supports what you're trying to do and you're not identifying with the story that part of your brain will tell you, which is you're not good enough. It's going to be bad. There's no way out.
So talking about that then, what do you think comes first? the story or the strategy, the how, or like the state?
Interesting. So your state is super important, and that's probably the one thing you can change very quickly through different models of whatever. Changing your physiology. We talk about cryotherapy in the morning, jumping in a cold pool. I have this thing that I give myself 5 minutes to be like upset about something, and then I just crack on with it. So I might be swearing at a wall in my office on my own that something didn't go according to plan. I might be writing it down. I have a Slack channel that has I stole this from a different podcast. I have a Slack channel that has good experiences and not so good experiences, and I write, and no one sees it.
Yeah.
Just me, because then I can understand that life has these ups and downs, and sometimes has really bad downs. When we talk about losing my health, or when my business hit 100K a month, I don't want to become attached to that moment. I want to understand that that will also pass, and there will be another moment coming through. So when I read my stories and I'm like, oh my God, in 2018 when I almost died, that was horrendous. But guess what? I'm here and we're having a chat.
So would you say then that time there, like, was there any other major turning points for you in your life, like that really affected you in a way?
Mm,
Would you say that was the main one that really like changed the way you looked at things? And
that was a huge one. Another one was coming to the UK. So I was 15, 16 at the time, I think, turning 16, coming to the UK. And we might lose a few followers here, Josh, but there was a lot of people complaining about stuff. The weather, the traffic, this and that. Only going 2 holidays this year. And I'm kind of like, I was asking for ice cream. My parents couldn't buy me ice cream because that's how bad the country was. Now I'm here and I'm walking in this supermarket at the time. It's called Morrison's. And I'm like, they have more than one Snickers bar?
yeah,
And I can buy 4 for £1? And I can go and work in this place and they'll give me money, and I can go and do that thing on Saturday and they can give me money? So the lesson there was, wow, your conditioning can make your life experience in one way or a completely different way, depending on how you interpret it. Your environment has a massive impact on you, but how you think has an even bigger impact on that. So then I realized, wow, anything is possible here in the UK.
yeah,
I'm going to get good at sports. I don't even speak the language, but I'm going to somehow communicate with people. I was told once I had 3 girlfriends at a time because I could only say yes and no. They're the 2 words I could say, but I didn't know what I was saying it to. If my wife is watching, huge apologies. I told her the story last week in the first time. So yeah, maybe a not so deep answer that you expected, but it's really important to understand how your environment plays part and how, and I learned this from later on in life, going to NLP course. So I qualified into neuro-linguistic programming. And I want to teach your listeners this exercise is being able to observe yourself from a third person that is not attached to that individual. And I'll give an example. So if people are watching this video now and it's you sitting there, me sitting here, they call it fly on the wall exercise. Imagine you're a fly on the wall that is you observing you and your friend conversing. Being able to detach yourself from yourself, whatever you call the self,
yeah,
or your business, and looking down without emotion, just analyzing without the feeling, super powerful exercise. Because sometimes you can catch yourself from there telling this person, why are you waving your hand so much? You look like a crazy Bulgarian person. Slow down. That's only humans have that skill, by the way, that third person point of view.
Yeah.
So that was really helpful for me as well, NLP. And the final one was having a kid, having a little one. The value and the lesson in that was how you perceive quality time. Because it kind of contradicted what I learned from losing my life. It was all about do it now, do it quickly, we might not have time, let's just not have savings, not think about the future, not plan ahead too much, live for the moment, which is amazing. And me and you always struggle with that, don't we? We always say we need to slow down. But at the same time, quality time. Like kids, that you know what it's like. He was 2 months yesterday, now he's like 3.5.
Yeah, it goes so quick.
So you finding tools to be like present.
Yeah. So what are some of those tools then? So like for you, you said about the NLP, but how do you remain present? Because the whole balance thing, I think it's not really that. It's more about the integration of like those different aspects of your life. And there'll be times where like one part's doing taking a lot of your time, and then others where it isn't as much. It's not as
Absolutely.
primary a focus. So how do you kind of, I guess, compartmentalize those different aspects of your life so that you can remain present with your friends, your family, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, great question. I still struggle.
Mm.
That's the ugly truth. I still struggle. But what's helped me in the last maybe no, probably longer, 7 or 8 years, is every single night on this pad here that you guys are watching. It might be, I started with paper. I have a 3-2-1 rule, and it's basically a framework for journaling. So every single night, I write the date and I write down 3 things that I was grateful that happened that day. And what that does is it creates this sense of it's not all bad. Good things always happen. And I do this exercise with my clients. I tell them, like, Josh, if you look around the room, can you actually, let's do it now. Josh, look around the room and tell me 2 things that you really don't like about this room.
Probably the light, how bright it is.
It's quite bright, yeah.
Yeah. Like these need to be changed.
Pretty ugly sockets. But the point is, you found a couple of things that you don't like.
Mm.
And now look around the room and tell me 2 things that you do like.
The space, the table, the seat.
Super nice, spacious, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And the space and the seat. And the point of the exercise is, in life, we get what we look for.
Yeah. What we focus on.
The focus
Yeah.
is, so this simple, write down 3 things that work well for you, that you found helpful that day. It doesn't have to be, I hired the best manager today, or we broke records, or we saw 107 new patients last month. My wife welcomed me, gave me a kiss after a hard day at work. That's 1. Then the 2 stands for 2 things I want to accomplish tomorrow, 2 things I want to get done tomorrow. That puts me in the future self, whereby I'm planning, I'm staying on schedule, and that's always linked to I have a habit tracker that is crazy complex. And 1 stands for, which is the hardest part, which is the self-awareness bit, is what is the 1 thing that I know I did today that I probably could have done better?
Mm.
And for me personally, because I've been doing it for years, it always goes back to kind of the same things, which are usually the hardest things
Like
to change. Patterns, they call them habits, call them traits, whatever you want to call them. They're very deeply engraved. And the more you do this exercise, the more powerful it becomes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I've done it, I don't know, like 7,000 times. A lot.
Yeah.
And now it's a habit. So now I have this self-awareness all the time. And I can catch myself, ooh, I snapped at my son and really probably shouldn't have.
That's really big, by the way. And, this comes down to a principle of Jim Rohn used to say, what's easy to do is easy also not to do, And so it's so true. A lot of life change and what have you is actually quite easy, some of the things, but it's just also as easy not to do. And so, yeah, just making it a habit is, one of the main principles for sure. What would some advice? What advice would you give to your younger self? So when you go back to, I don't know, let's say you've just finished uni, or whatever the course is, whatever thing you ended up studying, which is in your case is chiropractic. What would the advice be to your younger self? What advice would you give that, Stefan?
The advice I would give to my younger self is that the biggest investment in life is not necessarily being liked by everyone or having the urgency to be liked and accepted by everyone, but building connections with people deep. All my life I've struggled with, I want to be liked, what do these people think of me, what are they going to say? And I learned this from my wife, and she kind of walks in the room, she's like, I don't really good like what people think of me. I have my 3 or 4 friends that we're there for each other, always, family member, and you being a good friend of mine, always been there, and so on and so forth. That for me has been really big lesson that I only learned once I got to a certain age. I'm not going to reveal my age, but once I got to a certain age, I thought, actually, that's just wasted effort and time.
Yeah. So do you think it's less about being liked and more about like being like, what would you say it's more about being?
Standing up for what you believe in,
Okay.
being comfortable in your own skin, and you kind of attract your tribe.
Yeah.
You build your tribe around you. Because
I love
this,
that.
dude, I moved to England in a school of like, I don't know, 500 kids, and everyone liked me because I was the foreigner who was quite funny, but only because he couldn't speak English. I had hundreds of friends. I probably speak to 4 of them now. We have a WhatsApp group, or we have had since like years and years and years. Same with
Right.
us from university, right? I'm happy with that.
Yeah. 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 Good. That's really powerful. And who has been sort of, I guess the most influential person in your life? And what have been some of the key principles that you've learned from them? It could be, it could be a person, it could be books, it could be mentors. But yeah, who is that person for you? And what have you learned from them?
Complete transparency. The first person that jumped in my head was my mum.
Mm.
I know she's gonna cry so much when she watches this, so we're not gonna show her. 100%, just straight in there. The reason why that happened was, I imagine, is because this like confidence that things are possible, not to be afraid to take a risk. Um, things will be okay. You are better than you think, were installed in me so early on in life, which creates this like invisible bubble that I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna enjoy life. It's okay if it doesn't work this time. And it doesn't affect me on a mental state level.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's lots of challenges in mental health and things that I'm not an expert in, so I'm not gonna go into that. But personally, I feel like I'm like just blessed to have parents that have always been extremely supportive without having the resources to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she was definitely my first mentor. Business wise, should I tell you business wise?
Yeah, maybe who's been the most influential person in maybe your business? What have you learned from them as well?
Yeah, business wise, definitely my first ever employer and now friend and now business partner. uh, Almost like a relationship is Roy, one of my first mentors. One of the most incredible individuals that build incredible businesses as well. And just kind of getting the formula from him, what success looked like, and then putting a sprinkle of my own personality into it. It's been really good. Yeah, we literally like build an incredible clinic. We have an amazing team. You've seen the place, multidisciplinary practice, serving hundreds and thousands of people, and now I teach people how to do that themselves. And that has installed some very fundamental principles about how to think about entrepreneurship and business on a very raw level. No shiny object syndrome, no like incredibly complex systems and so on and all this stuff. Just and actually, for those of you watching and listening to this episode, you don't have to have this person in person. What did I say the other day? You guys were studying your textbooks in university, and I'm downstairs watching until 3 o'clock in the morning YouTube videos of Tony Robbins on personal development and self mastery. And yeah, I passed my exams, and that was all great. And I'm very fortunate to have practiced for 10 years as a chiropractor. But just that personal manual, how to master your brain, how to master your thoughts, how to master your stage. Because now business for me is, not to sound big-headed, it's easy. I can replicate, and we are with clients, we are replicating success because I have the formula. But it starts with knowing what success looks like for me, taking ownership of my life. So Tony Robbins had a huge impact in the way I thought.
Nice.
Unleashing the giant within, people think I exaggerate because I try to run a bit as well. I've listened or read the book probably more than 50 times.
Repetition is the mother of all skill, right?
Absolutely.
We need to, it's not a lot of time it's not saying we need to learn new, it's just we need to be reminded so that we can own it, not just intellectually, but emotionally, owning it within our body and physically so that we become it.
Yeah.
They do have, exactly. Defining moments for you, we've talked about that a lot, I think, already, so I won't do that. But tell me, I think just for the audience, I think a lot of time we talk about successes and stuff like that, but it's just as important, I think, to talk about significant failures and lessons that you've learned from that. So, like for you, can you talk about some of the biggest significant failures that you've experienced so far? It could be personally, professionally, but and then the lessons that you learned from that.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Uh, Here we go. So I decided to go against what everyone was advising me. And at the time, you guys as well were all opening your practices, were all getting to the next step of your life, ownership, building something significant that meant something to you. And I never really had this sense of I need to own something that I've built from scratch. So I kind of bought into a business, opened a clinic under an umbrella term, and the building was 8 treatment rooms, a rehab center, massive reception area, finance office, X-ray facility, huge car park. And week one, no patients.
No
I'm
patience.
nothing in the diary. So
And
I
you were open.
open. I'm
Oh,
waiting for them to come in.
so hold on a minute, just to put in perspective for people listening. So you've got this building, this overhead, you've got the electric, you've got all this equipment that you've bought,
Hired my
you've
first
leasing,
CA.
you've hired people, so you've got all this finance going out. So like, what was your like? Yeah, tell please.
So going back to sometimes I think we learn so much more from doing than planning. I think there is a place and time for planning, but definitely can be overdone. So I'm like, right, we've got to get in the building, we've got to do this, we've got to do this, and then we're gonna somehow make it work. I walk in, I just look around, and by the time, because it was so big, we didn't have that much furniture. So I just remember my thoughts like echoing off the walls. And we have 4 tables in reception with 4 chairs each. It's a big reception area, coffee place, and I'm envisioning it to be this thriving place. People come in, they're booking, the new place is open in town. We saved their life, they rave about us. And I'm sitting there on my own, and there's 2 big, beautiful computer screens over the diary. Nothing, nada.
Triggers.
And I'm thinking, at the time I didn't have my son. So I was selfish. At the time I'm thinking, right, okay, I'm going to pay the loan off for the next 10 years by working in a restaurant, 60 hours a week. This is not working. And then something happened. My mom's voice was again in my head. She's like, Evan, what are you doing sitting down? Call people, do this, do that. So I went on Facebook. I'm making these vouchers on my own on Canva. I'm saying, guys, we're open, the new place in town to get healthy. We're going to check your posture. For the first 25 people that comment, we're going to direct message you a voucher. 1 comment, 2 comment, 50 comments, 100 comments on a local Facebook group. Everyone's like, yeah, I want a voucher, I want a voucher. I'm like, what? Come on. We're winning, baby. After the first 10 DMs I sent with the voucher, Facebook blocks me. Because I said the same thing 10 times and the algorithm didn't like it for whatever reason. Yeah. And then the next 10, 15, 20 comments on Facebook are, this is a scam.
Oh my God.
These guys did not send me the voucher because I couldn't physically sell it. That is day 1 of business.
Wow. That's huge.
Month 2,
yeah,
we did 27K that month.
Wow. So how did you, so then what was the things you learned? What was the turning points like? Because from reading between the lines of that conversation is like you were resourceful. You found a way. There wasn't a way. Not everything goes to plan. So like, you had your mum's, her voice in your head. It's like you'll find a way. So you knew it was there. So like, how did you turn that around?
I had to spend the 5 minutes feeling sorry for myself.
As we do, yeah.
I cried.
Okay.
I called my wife. And then I remembered who the F I am. I make stuff happen. And that's not to sound disrespectful to anyone else, but half of the problems that I have, that clinic owners have when I work with them and we try to scale their business, is they don't do the work. Mm-hmm. So I did the work. I did the work. I did the work. And I did the work 10 times. 3 of them worked. And that took us to 27K.
So perfect, rather than perfect action, like just, I think there's a...
just the second part, just highlight
just
action.
Just even if it's like messy, right?
It's always
You're going to
messy.
learn more from just doing. Like,
Yeah, we do 7 figures now. We have a team of 15 people, full-time employment. We have marketing team, we have more clinics, and it's still messy on the back end.
hmm.
But you have to be able to detach yourself, move away from the situation. Imagine you're the fly in the wall. Look down at Stefan crying on the table, feeling sorry for himself. That state, that current emotional thing, does not change the output.
Yeah.
If the output is we need new patients to come in, what is the input? Me having an input as a box of I feel emotional, cry, call my wife, being angry, I think Facebook done me over, will create the same output. No new patients coming in. So we had to change the thinking process. And then obviously at the time, I always had mentors. I was investing with people, always part of masterminds, always like yourself trying to evolve, but it was a big shift. The way we think will have they call it a paradigm shift. The way you understand paradigm shifts and framework and how you operate as a person will be what makes your business successful. It's not the software I give you, I promise you that. It's not the SOP that I can write you.
It's not the shiny object.
It's not the shiny, it's not the marketing plan I can give you. It's you having to handle life from a first principle thinking, which always boils down to what is the truth? The truth is, I've got 40 something K coming out, massive building, I've got a
Huge
CA,
outlay. Yeah.
and I've got an empty diary. Excuse me. And
But
then,
to
dude,
work.
from then it just went from strength to strength to strength to strength to strength. And that was just you just have to go through these moments. Now, will that change anything? Yes. I would probably do what you did and just go crazy on getting new patients to come through the door to begin with. But my mind didn't operate in that way. So I had to learn the hard way, and I had to learn these lessons painfully. Business does not care about your emotion.
There was one other, and you shared this with me personally, and I don't know if we can have this in here or not, but I can edit it out if not. But there was one point in time in your business, and you shared this with me as a friend. You were like, about your team at the time, and you were a part of the business where you were not so much in it. You were more becoming an owner rather than an operator. But there was some things there, maybe some mistakes that were made there,
Massive.
where you learned. What were some of the failures there?
So that's the second biggest lesson I learned. So we're probably year 3, year 4. I'm practicing, everything's going well. I have 4 associates at a time, 3 massage therapists. The rehab center is just launching. And I lost the vision. I lost the self-awareness, what a business is. And like you said, the business is your team delivering a service and going towards the same mission collectively. And I was maybe like ahead of myself. I'm the entrepreneur. I've got a business. I'm going to step away from the clinic. I'm going to practice. I'm going to not practice. So that was the first time I stepped away from practice, which I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. And we went from at the time 65, 70K a month, 30, like 35, 40, within 3 months. Why? Because people didn't feel loved in my team. One of my best chiropractors left. I had an interview with her after to ask her specifically what I could have done better. And I cried in front of her. If she's listening to this, she knows that. Like, my eyes were watering. And I'm not gonna name her name. And I said, like, sure, I understand, but why? She said, you're just not here. And she didn't just mean physically. I just wasn't caring enough about investing in the team and in the business, because I was setting up a second business which had nothing to do with the chiropractic stuff, and I was just not there, just treating it as like this entity. But it's not an Apple organization when they have 2,000 employees and I'm this guy up there. No, I was scrubbing the floor 6 months prior to that.
Yeah.
I was printing leaflets.
Yep.
So everything changed since then. And now I'm not part of the business, but I'm there all the time.
So what was the lessons?
The lessons
What would be the 3 things that you learned from that experience?
Your team is the biggest asset you have. You cannot fake not caring for them. You've got to care for them. And number 3 is get a reality check from time to time. Get feedback from the team. What can we do better? How can I facilitate you better in your growth? I do that with my chiropractors 3 times a year. We have these checks. We have a catch up every single Friday. We buy pizza. I bribe them that way. But it's super nice environment. And I honestly come and see the clinic, come and visit us. It's just cool, man. It's like I want to see my family.
Yeah.
Someone comes in, something happened personally. I want to help them. Like, what happened? How can we make it better for you? We always step up for each other. And that's because people like to have a leader. And their leader was gone.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. My next one's a bit deeper, which is like, what do you believe the purpose of life is?
Oh, Josh. Whoa. What do I believe the purpose of life is? I actually, weird enough, think that sometimes. But it might not be an answer that people like. I actually think that life is what it is, and you put a meaning to it. So the purpose of life is exactly what you want it to be.
Oof.
Because I don't believe there is life beyond, especially in the physical. I would like to think I do, but I'm quite scientific at the same time and quite sort of business orientated. But I would like to. I'll tell you why I believe that. It's because it gives me empowerment to create my life the way I want to create my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's big. Yeah.
There we go.
Nice. Love it. And daily routines and habits, we talked a bit about this, but like, what are some of your like daily routines? What do they look like? What are some habits that contribute most to your success, you know, to create that state, to be the person that's going to be the leader, you know, in your business, in your family, with your friends, you know, and also the most success for you. And that can be not just success in terms of business, but like your health, your wealth, your love, your happiness.
Amazing question. My opinion has changed now as well. And I know that you're really good with your habits. And I used to be extremely pedantic. I would wake up, or very often I will have a 5 a.m. club, and used to, we used to take each other for accountability, and I would do cryotherapy. I'll have the cold shower. I would write my daily thing. I would read for 10 minutes, something inspirational. I would do my Wim Hof method. I'll record it on my Apple Watch. And then I would start planning the day. And then at night, I would wind down, I'll meditate. I did it for a long time, especially because I was very healthy and was very obsessed about being productive. But something has changed over time.
What do you think that is?
I'm part of this mastermind, and dude, I'm not going to tell you how much I spend on it, but you're basically sitting down with this room of millionaires. And the same question was asked by the founder. He said, guys, do you have daily routines and daily habits? And how does that work out for you? People that were the most successful and most happy only focused on like 2 or 3 things rather than being super regimented from a book that they read. And I think that's level 2 of self-awareness, level 2 of maturity. Level 1 is like, you tell me what to do and I think everything is exciting.
Yep.
The puppy, right?
Yep.
Tony Robbins said this, I'm going to do that. Whatever. Tim Ferriss said the 4-hour work week is the best thing. I'm going to work 4 hours. And you have to go through that to understand what yourself, how do I operate? So currently, this is my routine. I have, can we swear? Yeah. I've got the big ass calendar.
Okay.
So I have my, it's like a big spreadsheet, and it's an annual thing that has my yearly goals. And for my business, I write down 1, 2, 3 things. My health, 1, 2, 3 things. My finances, 1, 2, 3. Family and personal, 1, 2, 3.
Nice.
That's it. These are the big 3 things that we were talking about this earlier that I obsess over. Then the second column is monthly. This is where the magic happens. I don't write them as goals. I write them as habits.
So what do you mean by that?
So if my business goal was to have 100K a month per month in my practice, what are the habits, inputs that will get me to that goal?
Gotcha.
I'm not breaking it down to saying 83.3K per month. I say for January, I need to have 50 DMs per day sent, 2 marketing campaigns organized. So does that make sense?
Actions.
Actions. Yes.
That will drive the output.
The reason I call them habits is because my tracker eventually goes back to the day
of what are the things that are going to move on.
And what I did was I analyzed myself and I said, what does a perfect day for me look like? Emotionally, physically, business wise, and output wise. Meaning, if I do those 7 things, I win. And I've turned them into tick boxes. And that creates a tracker on the side. So it sounds very complicated. But by the way, if your listeners want this, I just made my guy, I got my guy to make it into a thing that they can literally just enter their email and we receive them.
They download it?
They download it. And I think there's a training video that we made how to use it.
Amazing.
So
we can put that in the comments?
Yeah. You need to remind me. And that has basically, if someone told me that 10 years ago, that's the only thing I would have used. I've gone through so many trackers, so many softwares, Monday, Asana, Trello, this. That is the thing that I'm like, okay, I've literally ticked every single thing because I've broken it down to a day. And to go back to your original question, I try to wake up before 7. Doesn't work sometimes, but that's okay. I don't tick the box. I didn't wake up before 7. I tried to drink 500 ml of water before 9. That for me, that works really well because I feel hydrated. The next thing is I check my bank account. That's one of the inputs that I like. I check my, I call it like higher level meetings. Have I checked up with the manager for my clinic? Have I checked up with my success manager for my second business? Tell Abby and Nalu I love them before I leave the house. And then it has another 10 things.
Love it. Love it. Thanks for sharing that. It's really insightful. And what's sort of the process that you would follow then for setting and achieving those goals? So like breaking down those big goals, because I think a lot of the time is if you're trying to improve yourself, and it can be personally, professionally, whatever it is that you're looking to do. I think sometimes it's so easy to get overwhelmed with like the amount of stuff that you could do. So like what is your process? What do you follow for setting, but most importantly, actually achieving those goals?
Yeah. Love it, dude. Manage your calendar. I'm going to look at the camera now. Manage your calendar. If you're a private client of mine, this is the first thing I ask you to do. Pull out your Google Calendar. Let me see what your day looks like. If it doesn't get done in the calendar, it's scheduled, it just doesn't get done. So the first thing we realize is, how do I align whatever your values and goals are with what that actually looks like on the day-to-day thing, which is why I think the tracker is super helpful.
It breaks it down, makes it less overwhelming.
Let me give you an example. So a client of mine, she's going to smash it this year, but I think they just completed, it was about 700 or 800K last year from her practices. And she was saying, I don't think 1 million is possible. I just don't know how to do it. We have an amazing team, but I just don't know how to do it. And I said, hang on, you're just talking about this £1 million business. It's huge. It's a very overwhelming, like you said, goal, because it requires 200 inputs to happen at the right time, on the right manner, consistently. Let me do something with you. And we went through this whole exercise. It turns out for her to get from where she is to where she wanted to be in 2025, you're going to laugh at this, it required 10 extra visits per chiropractor per week.
That's crazy.
And she was
it's not that much.
Oh my goodness. I know. So that's the power of first principle thinking. That's something I was blessed with from a very young age, is how do I get there the quickest and the most effective way? Not efficient, effective.
Yeah. You tell me that all the time. Like, I'll be previously working on the wrong things, or like be working so hard, but then the output's like, hold on a minute, has that really had an impact on what I'm going to be doing?
And you do it well.
Yeah.
But like I said to you, if you're trying to make sushi and you're like baking lasagna, it's irrelevant to the sushi.
For sure.
So you might make an amazing lasagna, but if you were after the sushi thing, like, let's work on the right recipe in the best possible way, and especially now, Josh, we're coming to this incredibly exciting stage of technology versus AI versus the amount of input creates a disproportionate amount of output in a certain system.
Yep.
And now we have agents coming up, automations. It's not going to replace jobs necessarily. It might replace some jobs, but it's going to make those people who are incorporating that in their businesses, in their personal life, even better, even more effective.
Yeah. Dan Martell said something, he said, AI is not going to replace your job, but the people that are using AI are going to replace you.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, yeah, that's huge. This kind of leads on really well to my next question, which is like, when we are overwhelmed and you're trying to break up those goals into actionable inputs, sometimes fear can get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
you talked about how like you don't struggle as much with that sometimes because of this resourcefulness, this resilience that you've really gained from your family and your story. But
And I
like
put in the reps as well.
and the reps, and you do the action which creates the confidence, through doing it, that imperfect action. But for those people who are getting stuck in that fear sometimes, and how do you overcome that fear sometimes and just take that bold action, even though you're uncertain about the outcome? Like you don't know that it can work, but how do you get over that? Because a lot of the time we get stuck in the how am I going to do this? How am I going to, how am I going to get to there? What am I, is that the right place to start? Like what are
Yeah.
some strategies, or like what are 3 things people can do to like overcome that fear and take bold action?
It's a really, really good question. Like, I know that you've gone through the struggles yourself to even have the awareness to ask that question, and you found some helpful tips along the way. I'm going to make it really simple. This is what I do.
It's good. It's good.
I hope this podcast is not underwhelming for people because this is the stuff that works. Um, there's a very, do you remember how I started the podcast and I said I try to turn most things into adventure, and I stay curious. Curiosity is a very powerful thing. But fear and anxiety are very close neurophysiologically, chemically, biochemically linked to excitement.
Cool.
So I learned this kind of the hard way because the first time I did public speaking, one of my mentors at the time said, look, you are going to get your palms feeling sweaty. You are going to start feeling constricted. You are going to start feeling this tummy and butterflies. But he goes, guess what? When you were a kid and you just found out you're going on holiday, what were the feelings you had?
Same feelings.
Same feelings.
Yeah.
So now I think, well, actually, like, I don't have to do this thing. I can just call it a day and move to another country and like work in whatever to become a car mechanic. I don't have to do this. I get it's an opportunity for me to do this. So it's fear versus excitement. Going back to the journaling, like it's a constant reminder, man. We're so lucky. We're so lucky. Going back to my health challenge, we're so lucky.
I think just to go back to what Stefan just said, fear versus excitement, that's huge. Because I think really my understanding of that is like, if your purpose and your why, the reason why you're doing what you're doing is big enough, you will find the how. You will find the how. And like making that emotional for you.
And I'm just going to double click. So, you said, what's another thing that helps you to take that step? We all know the book, or if you don't, it's a great book. Eat That Frog.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Brian Tracy.
Brian Tracy talks. By the way, I love the guy. He's another kind of mentor that I've studied a lot. Not something that doesn't work well for me is to take action on the biggest thing, because I actually find that the human body likes to prove to itself that it's on the right path. And I'll explain what I mean by that. If I wake up in the morning and everything is going well, but all of a sudden we realize the campaign that we launched has generated 0 leads because we didn't input the telephone number that has to be required filled. And I look at the report and I've got 50 people, no phones. The first thing is, or it might be fear, or it might be anger. He says, handle the biggest challenge in the morning. And I kind of agree to that. But in order for you to create momentum, take one small step. So break it down to the easiest barrier to entry. What's the lowest hurdle that I can jump over to continue the domino process?
To get you in this state and get momentum.
To get momentum. And for me, that might be to actually step away, take a deep breath in, remind myself of a previous experience that I made a mistake, but we succeeded at the end, and then take that first step.
Wow.
It doesn't have to be a big step.
Yeah.
If you are a business owner and you think to yourself, last month we had only 11 new patients, I'm minus £2,000 on the bills, it has no positive impact on the actions you're going to take forward to change that behavior.
Yeah.
So do the thing that Warren Buffett said and said, when you watch the crowd going towards one way, just go the other way.
Yeah.
Do the opposite.
Interesting. Yeah, that's the momentum thing. I've not thought of that before.
The smallest thing.
Yeah.
It's just like a run. I don't want to think about the 10K I'm doing tonight when I get back
Just
to
the
my
first two
house.
steps.
Just, yeah, putting my
Just
Strava watch
get your
on.
shoes on.
Exactly. Put your shoe on. Take that first step.
Yeah.
So I
The
hope that
trigger.
helps
The
the
trigger.
people listening.
Nice. And just a couple more questions. What are some of the key philosophies, beliefs that guide your life, guide your work, and what are the core values that guide you at this stage in life?
Interesting. It's a big question, dude. Um, Key philosophy for me is actually something that I mentioned earlier. It's life. Life is what you make it.
Mm.
I learned this from NLP. By the way, it's one of the most impactful practices. It might be slightly outdated, but it talks about how the map is not the territory, meaning um, how you interpret the map is very often based on your belief system. So, whatever, you're late. I was talking to one of my associates about this. I said to him, the patient may have said this, but this is your interpretation of what they meant. That may have not been what they meant. Example, I leave the clinic, I get stuck in traffic. I call my wife to say, hey, darling, I'm late, I'm stuck in traffic. She might think, he's always late. Why is he calling me? He should have left earlier.
Yeah.
That is her map of the world. Yeah. My world is, I love her. I want to tell her that I'm running late, so I just want to give her a heads up. How many times does that happen every single day in your business, in your personal life, in your relationship?
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
It's very important to read the world based on first principles thinking. What is the actual truth? Not what I felt like, not what I thought could happen, not my assumptions. Assumptions are the killer for all creativity. Assumptions are the killer for all success, I think. Stop assuming. Yeah? Cool. Yep. So that, for me, that's always been a massive philosophy. Life is what you make life to be.
Nice.
And just clearing your lenses, how you see the world.
Yeah.
Values-wise, I've done a lot of exercise and self-development. Dr. John Demartini has an amazing test. I do this probably once or twice a year.
So Messiah, we can put that in the link as well.
Brilliant. And have you noticed in your life, your values change?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I look back, I'm like, oh wow, that was so important before. Now I'm like, no, that's like fourth on the list.
Yeah. And actually, you told me off once, and I still remember it. I had my values written down ages ago, and it was like family, health, finances. And you're like, Steph, are you sure these are like? Are you being honest to yourself? At the time I was actually building the business, and I didn't want to say that it was very important to create financial independence for me and my family. And although I was doing it for the family, I was never there for the family. And when I was there for the family, I was stressed out and not present. I'm like, is my family really the top of the value right now? Or am I just writing it down because emotionally that's what it feels like, ethically that's what it feels like, societally that's what it feels like to say?
So what other people, your
fathers, even myself, teachers, what would I say to myself if I've put family second and money or health first? But my values have changed quite a lot, and one of the biggest exercises I learned that people can possibly try is I write origin and then I write value. So understanding where that value comes from is more important than just knowing the value. An example for me is one of my biggest values is a sense of forward motion. I have to, this is my personal fulfillment and in business, I have to know that we are moving forward. And the origin of that is just back home, there was like very difficult to progress in life. It was very difficult. My mom was a nurse working 50, 60 hours a week. My dad was a police officer doing the same thing. He barely paid the bills because of the way the economy was in the country. So for me, it's very important to have that sense of I'm moving forward and I'm progressing, we're evolving, we're getting better.
Love that.
But that's just one of many.
Yeah. And I think that comes down to values come from voids, right?
Yeah, 100%. Voids.
Good. And for you, you already mentioned about mum being a real inspiration for you. So we'll kind of move on to what brings you that. I think it leads really well into this section of what brings you that most joy and fulfillment at this stage in your life.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it because obviously we've just interviewed ourselves, and you are an awesome guest on my podcast. But it's that sense of we've done enough. Enough is enough, and it's really nice to give back. So now the consulting business, I don't do it for the money. Yeah, it's expensive because we create a massive amount of value for people and I want to take it seriously. But watching clinics, you know how the ripple effect takes place? You become a chiropractor and you help 50 people that week, you help 100 people that week. And then you have a clinic and you teach your chiropractors the skill set that has helped you in life and in profession. And all of a sudden, they're helping 300 people that week. And just watch these people come to your practice and they're leaving nice reviews, they're smiling, they're happy, they're changing their lives. Now I get to do that with clinics. So the ripple effect for me, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And people might watch this and they're like, oh, why is he so positive all the time? He's always smiling, everything is going great. It's not true. But I truly am super happy with being able to help practices, especially when you see a struggling practice. And I think there's no reason. Chiropractic is amazing. Just let me teach you these systems. Let me teach you how to market. Let me teach you what's important, how to build teams, culture. Go crazy. It will, like, it's super rewarding. Yeah, being able to give back.
Love that.
Yeah.
And what have you discovered about yourself through your journey?
That the most memorable, pleasurable, meaningful experiences in life are typically free.
Nice.
So why chase this whole money rat race? The biggest, one of my mentors told me that, and good friends of mine now, the biggest way to escape the rat race, people are like, I'm not enter it in the first place. So be very mindful of how you want to live your life. Going back to values, understanding what's important to you and what makes you happy. But yeah, just think about the experiences in your life. We went for a walk last night. How much did that cost us?
Nothing.
Apart from we bought a bar of chocolate and
And some sweets.
and some sweets. But how nice was that conversation we had walking the dog?
Yeah, it was really chill.
So nice, right? I'm probably going to remember that a lot more than an expensive dinner we may have had prior to that.
Yeah. Nice. And my final couple of questions is like, for you, what do you see for the future of the industry, the chiropractic industry, the healthcare industry, the field? And what are your next big goals?
Okay. Oh God, here we go. So I am actually not very involved with politics at all. Whether that's something will change in the future or not, I'm not sure. But I love impact, and I love to be transparent with what success has been for us and teaching people that stuff. So the way I envision the profession is, and I'm involved with, obviously I've got a couple of companies and I kind of give my own technology and that development and how that shifts the world. I believe that we are in an incredibly unique position right now to step up how we communicate chiropractic, how we build a business, how you have that impacting the community, because AI is not going to be able to replace the human chiropractor. It might replace your software or your CRM system or the number of times you email people manually, but it's not going to replace the chiropractor. On top of that, we have an overwhelm of an NHS system, which is in the UK here. It's not the people are bad, it's not the doctors or nurses are bad, they're amazing people. The system is just overwhelmed. So people like Mrs. and Mr. Smith who have back pain, neck pain, problems with their health, they will be looking for convenience. I want to call someone that I want to be seen and I want people to help me. I don't have to wait for 6 weeks for my scan. That's where we come in. So we have to be super, super empowered that we can help back pain, neck pain, the whole things that we can help with, but also people. We can help people. In my practice, I always say to them, like, what is our vision? That's the number one thing we have written down everywhere is we change lives one patient at a time. And that has a lot of hidden agendas behind it. One of the biggest hidden agendas is it doesn't matter how many new patients you get this week, every single new patient is a real person. Yeah. Treat them the best you can. And that might come from exercise routine and recommending stretches outside the office whilst getting adjusted. Or that might come from having an incredibly streamlined business that is supported with AI, supported with a good software, that you have a coach who tells you how to do stuff, but it's the outcome is the patient, the results. Yeah. So I think we're actually in a super unique position, despite all the political discrepancies between universities. I do agree with you. I think the gap between how a student graduates and what they need to be equipped with is maybe widened, but people like yourself, people like us, we're great at doing that and helping them along the way. So we'll need people like you to teach students how to be very equipped as quickly as possible after graduating. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's a really good thing where we stand. Because technology, automations, AI, VR technology means that everything is becoming less human. And we're here healing people with our hands, helping people connecting.
Building community,
But also like having the impact to that person's life, not through telephone or these VR goggles that there's crazy stuff happening in China and Japan already. People having boyfriends and girlfriends and they're virtual. They're not even they're AI. Because they lack connection. They want that human thing. So we need to be louder.
That is definitely that's a whole episode in itself. I mean,
So that's where I get excited about. And where I come in the picture is I am going to build the best program in the world of how to create communities for clinic owners to facilitate that to the communities.
Nice. I love that. And so that's kind of so you've talked about that, and what do you hope your legacy will be, and how do you want, is that how you want to be remembered? Like, what are the contributions you hope to make, and what do you want to leave behind?
That's super important, yeah. Do you know, I thought about this a lot, and I'm not sure if I got influenced by Alex Hormozy or other people that have written like books like Die with Zero, some really like impactful.
Or like, who was the steel magnate? Alec Carnegie, Dale Carnegie. Talking about if you build this wealth, I'll spend the first part of my life creating wealth, and then the second part giving it away. I mean, what an amazing.
Yeah.
He said if you die rich, you're a fool.
Absolutely. And the question is, how do you define success and impactful life and legacy? And I honestly, I wish I was like Alexander the Great, where 23 conquers the world for the good and the bad. But the older I get, the more I start to think of a successful life, of an amazing legacy, as the kind of kids that I bring up to continue the ripple effect. That is the biggest investment. My sons, daughter, like your kids. How did I help them become the human that I know they can be to continue that ripple effect? Because I actually think after 50 years, 100 years, people, second, third generation, people don't really, like, do you know much about your great-great-great-granddad?
Nope.
No, so I'm not sure the whole legacy thing sits with me as strong as it used to, but I know I can do my bit, especially like on a personal level, on a professional level, maybe even on a business level, depending on what career they choose to go into, is how do I raise them to be good people, nice people that also want the world to be a better place by the time they get to leave. Yeah. So I have thought about it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think we'll leave on that. I really appreciate you jumping on the show with us today. And in terms of the people that are listening, like, how can they find a bit more about you, like what you do, how some of the problems you solve and the solutions you provide?
Yeah, the easiest way I'm very active on social media, so Stefan Gospodinov, super long weird surname. We're going to have to spell that out for people.
We'll put that in there.
In the show notes. But Practice Peak is my consulting company where we work with clinics very closely to build better businesses and have bigger impact. So we probably have now 25, 30 clinic owners in the community. Every week we catch up. I push people to step outside their comfort zone to show them what's possible. Everyone is winning. It's super positive. It's going from strength to strength. So Practice Peak is my company, and I don't bite. Come and have a chat with me, guys. Obviously, I have my big practice as well. So we always talk to.
You're in the trenches.
Yeah, I think that makes me stand. I literally on Monday morning, I'll have my meeting with my manager. We'll argue. We'll do this. We'll do that. We'll get the job done. And then clients will ask me, how do you build a leadership team? I can tell them because I'm doing it. So for me, that's really been I found the winning formula for my life. I teach what I do and I still do it. I teach people that.
Love it. Well, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it. Cheers.